So, what do you think about AI in content creation right now?
I have a lot of really complicated feelings about AI,
So, share your
obviously.
complicated
So,
feelings.
uh, almost all of me is like, "Fuck that. We don't need it. Who's asking for this? Who really wants it?"
Fair
Like,
enough.
that's my first impulse.
Okay.
And my first impulse comes from, like, a deep love of humans
Okay.
and human experience.
But you're such a professional critique of humans. Or is it because of the
Well, but
love?
it's because of the
Oh,
love,
it's
right?
because of the
Like,
love.
yeah, like, I'm not a pessimist because I
No.
don't love the world. I'm a pessimist because I'm deeply disappointed,
You set the bar so high. Come
right?
on, humans. Act accordingly.
Well, but and so I do think that there's a difference in the way that humans react to things. One of my favorite picket signs during the writer's strike was AI doesn't have childhood trauma.
Yet.
But so I think there's really interesting applications for AI, and I think that they are more about how you build a world around something. I think there's applications for AI more in sort of image creation and in sort of how to sort of um, mechanize some processes, but I don't think that AI that is right like any story I've read written by AI makes me wanna kill myself. Sorry, makes me wanna KMS. That's what the kids say today.
They
They
already have an acronym for
Yeah,
it? It makes sense.
yeah,
FML,
yeah. They wanna
PDQ,
KMS.
WQ. Oh,
Um,
I love it all.
so I just it's uncanny, it's just it almost entire like, except I've seen a couple of clever applications, but I haven't seen anything from AI that has emotionally resonated with me.
So, what would be a clever application?
A clever application is okay, so I think some of the like, Lord of the Rings, but yassify them, right? Like
Okay.
I think there's some fun iterative things there that AI can do,
Yeah.
but I think that another good example is a podcast I listen to
Okay.
put in all of their episodes. They like put in all their episodes into this model, and then at their live shows would ask AI,
Oh, questions based upon the transcript?
yeah, and have them sort of say what was gonna happen next in the show, and it was fun and
That does
funny.
sound kinda cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What
Like,
was the context of the show? Like, what was the premise of the show?
the show is, like, about, like, celebrity gossip and
Oh, that could be fun.
yeah, yeah, and so they just sort of like the what they pulled from and the sort of, like, the language that got used or not used was really clever and interesting, and, like, some of it was, like, things that people would say, and some of it was things that they never would have said.
So, what you just said just gives me an idea.
Yeah,
What if, you had a favorite group? I mean, hell, let's just take Sex in the City,
okay,
right? If you were to take all those audio files,
yeah.
put the transcripts in an AI, a large language model, ingest all that data and parse it so that you can create a chat bot in which you can never really be a part of that crew. But if you were deeply involved with it emotionally or however what, you could be a part of that crew. It's almost like you could take your headphones with you, go sit somewhere for have coffee and people watch and have the conversations with that group.
I suppose, but I feel like I don't normally say this about anything that actually got written and made by people, but like I feel like Che Diaz is the AI version of Sex and the City, right? Like I feel like they did do that a little bit for And Just Like That. They were like, okay, so
Oh
here
shit.
are the here are the people who the kind of things they'd say, and here's the friend. Like our research says they each need a black friend, so let's give them each a black friend, right? Like,
I think that has merit what you're saying.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
it's super valid. No, no, I
yeah.
So I wasn't thinking
No, no, I know,
I was taking the optimistic
I know you're
approach,
taking
but
the optimistic approach, but also, like, you know what's even better than that?
it's so true.
Is sitting in a cafe someplace with an actual other human being and talking to them.
I get it, but I guess yeah, no.
Are you lonely, Neil?
I know,
Is that what
right?
it is?
No, I'm just trying to think about the intro I feel like people are becoming more and more introverted,
Yes.
and our culture enables that, right?
Yeah.
And as much as I think, "Oh, okay, I wanna create things that have value for them," but it continues to foster that ability to stay within yourself,
Yeah.
you know? So, I guess that is the byproduct, the trade-off you're having
Yes.
with these cool new ways of interacting with things, but it's all virtual and it's not real, but
Right.
it's only as real as we allow it to be, right?
Right.
So you have a great point in that. I think a very valid point.
I mean, if I personally learned anything from the darkest days of the pandemic,
Okay.
it's that I need to be around people. I need to feel the energy of other humans in my life.
Yeah.
And when I don't have that, I just sort of like just clench up and I'm not and great that I could video call people and great that like Zoom was there to fill the void,
Yeah.
but like I need actual human interaction or I get absolutely crazy.
Well, given what you do, it's very creative. In marketing, you have to be very creative and I mean, it feels good when you have a crew around you.
Mhm.
You're bouncing ideas off each other. You know, you're like, "Oh, that shit, that's dope. This would be great if we did this." You can It is. It's hard to get that same feeling, and you had that for years, didn't you?
I mean, we had I was lucky enough to be a part of a really great team at the CW that we
Yeah.
worked together and we worked together for a long time and we sort of like grew up together to a certain point. I want to
Almost
make
2 decades.
Yes, I want to make something really clear though.
Okay.
I think I can do my job from anywhere. I don't think that doing my job well depends on being in a room with another person.
Okay.
And I think that's what bosses say so they can justify how much they paid for rent on a building. Like, in terms of, like, a forced return to work, like,
Yeah.
I personally like to be with people, but I think that all people can do good work without that,
Yeah.
and the sort of that, like, "Oh, no, everyone must be in the building 5 days a week," like, I spent plenty of time as in, like, an hourly temp, like, watching the clock, like, no, I didn't come up with an idea because I ran into someone from the product team in the break room, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
I wanna like,
Okay.
I love to be in person, I love being with people, but I don't wanna, I don't like the strain of capitalism happening right now that's like, "And if we're not in the same building, we can't do anything."
Yeah, yeah. No,
I have to I gotta say it.
I mean, other people clearly agree with it because look at what Endemol did. They had that spot 60,000
Yeah,
square feet
yeah,
in North Hollywood, and now they're down to 10 because they don't need it. It's not that they're turning out any less product.
yeah,
They just like, "We don't need it."
yeah, yeah. Okay, but going back to, like, yes, 2 decades with the same team. No, it was great, yeah, nearly 2 decades, between the WB and the CW, together, and just it I think it was the kind of experience I'll never have again. It's the kind of
Oh,
experience I don't think p well, in terms of that longevity, right? Like, that's just like, it was the last gasp of an old way of doing business, which I think is a good way of doing business. Like, I don't by any means think that, my employer was my daddy
yeah.
or that, we're all a big family and we're all in it for the same things, right? Because,
Yeah.
the 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 incentives for a CEO and a CFO are different. The incentives even for, like, a senior vice president, much less a coordinator or an assistant or anything else
Yeah,
there,
Don Ostroff was getting way different on you.
right? But I think that, the idea that you can treat your coworkers and the people who work for you as well as you would hope your family treats you,
Yeah.
um, is great. Like, I think the idea of having protective and nurturing environment helps work do the best. That doesn't mean that I think that, again, in capitalism, the family thing is
Yeah.
really what's going on, but, like, that is uh it's an ideal for me, right? Like, to be able to work in a team and with a group of people over a certain amount of time and know what's going on with them and, we got married, we got divorced, people lost parents, like, right? Like, all of these
No,
things
I
happened while
remember.
we worked
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
So, and that I think matters. It matters to know, that you can be there for people, right? I was on a business trip in New York. I was out there for the Digital New Fronts
Okay.
in 2018.
Okay.
And that's a trip that I would go out on, and I'd come back to Los Angeles, and then like a week later, half the company would go to New York for the upfront presentations.
Right.
So in 2018, I went to bed early one night because I had the Hulu New Front the next morning, and I felt so sick. I was really sick. I didn't feel good.
Okay.
I thought it might be cramps because I'm a lady, and that's a thing that happens to me.
It happens.
And in the morning, I was like, God, I don't think I can even like go to Hulu. And like I walked over to like a Dwayne Reed and got some Malox or whatever. I was trying to figure out what it is. And then finally it hurt so much that I called the front desk.
Okay.
I was at the W Hotel in Times Square.
Okay. I've been to that
I
one.
somehow thought it was the 1950s and I'm like, "Do you have a doctor? Is there a doctor in the house?" But they're like, "No." And they told me I could take a cab to a hospital.
Well, that's thoughtful of them.
Isn't that
Did they
nice?
hail the cab for you at
They
least?
did not hail the cab,
Shit.
no one came to my door to make sure that I was
Yeah, it's
okay.
not the
I st
1950s.
it's not the yeah. So I stumbled down what ended up happening is my appendix ruptured,
Oh, shit.
and I had to have emergency surgery, and they
Yeah,
cleaned it
yeah.
all out, and I was in the hospital in New York for a week and a half
Okay.
alone, right? Like, and so what was nice about that is that the people that I work with called me, reached out to me, sent me flowers. When I came back, they understood that I had been sick and that I needed help and that I needed assistance doing the things I normally do for a time, and that people could pick up the slack for me
Yeah.
in the same way that I could pick up the slack for people who, suddenly were out for whatever reason. Like that you can get a sense of teamwork and common purpose that allows you to be a human being
Yeah.
outside of the work that you do to drive forward the company and the shareholder value and the this and the that.
Well, because that environment does do that,
Yeah.
and that's the thing we talk about on the investment side so much is
Mhm.
that to create that is what enables everything that they're wanting
Mhm.
monetization-wise.
Yes.
Damn. You know what you reminded me of? You ever seen the movie Pirate Radio? I'm sure you have.
Of course.
When they're doing that little sit around, they're almost, have you ever type thing,
Mhm.
and he says something to the effect of it was towards the end, it was Tom Sturge's character he's speaking with, we're living in the best of our times, and Sturge being younger, he's like, "I don't know about that," and Philip Seymour Hoffman's character is like, "No, I've been around, kid. Trust me, you're living in a best time of a time right now."
I think that every week when I watch Vanderpump Rules. The theme song says these are the best days of our life.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
I've never watched Vanderpump Rules,
Well then,
so
forget about reading the Julia Phillips book. Go home.
just turn
Fire
that
up the
on?
peacock. It is so good.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, she's been on for a bit.
I mean, you say she, it's Lisa Vanderpump owns the restaurants
Uh-huh.
that these shows take place in, but, like, what the shows are really about are the, like, actors and actresses and models who are waitresses and bartenders at her establishment.
Oh, see, I didn't know the premise.
Oh, yeah, yeah, and it's sort of like they all moved to LA to be famous, and they
Yeah.
were kind of not getting famous off of the work they were genuinely doing in Hollywood, so they had these they were waiting tables and bartending and being the hostess at these restaurants, and now they are, the New York Times Magazine this past weekend had Tom Sandoval from the show on the cover of the New York Times Magazine, which is just shocking to me.
Okay.
Um, and it just followed their lives, and they are just kind of terrible, horrible people like people you knew when you were in your late 20s and 30s as you grow up, right? Like,
Yeah.
and they all cheat on each other and they could all use an AA meeting. They could all use a sex and love addicts meeting. Like
Yeah.
they could all use a lot of meetings, but
Yeah.
it's about sort of that the striving and the sort of like how to get along and live in this world. And for years I loved to watch it
Interesting.
because they all lived in like, terrible West Hollywood apartments with, like, vertical blinds and, like, in-window air
Yeah,
conditioners and
yeah,
just sort of like, there's one apartment famously where you couldn't, like, put on the microwave and any other thing in the
because of blow
apartment.
breaker.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But to watch people live and try to survive in this city while pursuing some kind of ethereal dream it's fun.
I'm sold. I didn't know that's what it was
Yeah,
about
yeah,
because, we only have so much bandwidth
of
in
course.
a day, and the list just keeps getting longer of things I want to enjoy.
Of course.
Yeah. So okay. So this is actually a good perfect question. Where do you see how content is consumed going? Like, because I mean, sports rights, huge thing right now. CW, when it was bought by Nexstar, they tried to do that whole live golf. I mean, there's so many changes. Where do you see it all going then?
I mean, I think that, I think people wanna watch whatever they wanna watch, and I hate the word content because it
Uh,
makes it feel like a widget and not
like a
like
product,
it feels like yeah, it feels like something from a factory, not from, like, again, people.
something really rooted.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think that people, since, cave drawings, have enjoyed seeing things and
yeah.
seeing things on sort of the best available surface at the time, right? So
Okay,
the cave walls were the
that's a good
best
way of
places,
articulating.
right?
Yeah, yeah. It makes
And
sense the way you're
so,
saying it.
if I start watching something on my phone and it's going to be longer than like 2 minutes, I'll move it to my laptop or my iPad or the big screen. Like I like to watch something on the best available screen.
Okay,
I you know, I'm an old, right?
I'm an old.
I'm an
What
old.
is that phrase?
I
I'm an
mean,
old.
yeah,
I've never heard
I'm an
that.
old.
I'm an old.
Right, I
I'm
am.
still trying to adult.
Yeah, I am in the second part of, the century.
Okay.
And, I love to go to a movie theater. I love to go see something with other people. I went and saw May December in the theaters. It's a movie that was recently out on Netflix, and I think it got a screenplay Oscar nomination. Charles Melton, who had been on Riverdale, is the male lead of it, and he should have gotten a
Not
Best
Jared
Actor.
Padalecki?
Not Jared
Yeah, I
Padalecki. He's
swear
still in it.
he was home at CW.
Yeah, he's still there. He's
He's
still
still
there.
there.
Yeah, Walker's still on the air there. But May December in the theater was incredible because it's got a very sort of weird comedic tone that you sort of need to be around other people to get the permission structure to laugh at the times you wanna laugh,
I
and
could see that.
I loved
Yeah,
it, and a lot of people I know who watched it alone at home were like, "I just didn't understand and it made me uncomfortable."
interesting.
Yeah.
So,
So the future of entertainment,
yeah,
I think the future of what entertainment is robust, but it's a lot less communal than it ever has been, right?
yeah.
Like, I I watched the finale of MASH because that's how old I am, right?
No,
The
no,
most watched thing. It was a thing.
it was like a Luke and Laura
Yeah.
moment, the finale
The
of
Luke and
MASH,
Laura. Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I remember being at college and things stopped on Wednesday night so everyone could go watch Melrose Place. And I
Yeah,
remember I was in Providence, Rhode Island, and the window was open next to me because I was smoking out of it because it was 1993 or 94 or whatever. and
As one does.
as one does, and at the end of an episode, the character of Kimberly pulled off a wig and had this whole huge scar
She was the
down the
redhead, right?
yeah, the redhead.
Sydney.
No, 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 Sydney
Sydney
was
was
the
somebody
hot
else.
the young redhead.
That's right.
Yeah, Kimberly was the an older red she was a doctor with Michael.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
that's right.
yeah, and
Yeah,
she
I
came
remember.
back from the dead, and so she
Yes.
pulls this wig off, and she's got this giant scar on her head, and, like, the 7 or 8 people we were watching it with at this house screamed, but I could hear screams, like, across the city of Providence because the window was open
Oh
next to
my
me, and we were
gosh.
all watching it at the same time.
Yeah.
Right, so those moments are few and far between. I think something like, the Super Bowl this year that goes into overtime that, has Taylor Swift in the audience so other people are watching it. That's the way we get communal experiences in the same way
Yeah.
because live matters in something like that. And so people are incentivized to watch at a certain time so that they can enjoy the drama that happens.
Yeah.
And that just doesn't happen with scripted content anymore. Um, but I think that there are ways that people can come together over scripted content. And I think sort of uh, what's interesting to me about scripted content is where you get, Comic-Con and you get like fan events and you get people BravoCon is a great example, right? That's not scripted content. That's reality shows. And how much money is Bravo making from like just throwing all their reality stars up on a stage and charging.
People wanna see the train wreck in real life.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's interesting.
yeah, I think there's a robust future, and I think some things will be smaller and some things will be larger. But yeah, the monoculture is gone.
Okay. Interesting. I it makes me think of so many things when you start talking about that
Yeah.
on so many levels. Because I that's one thing I do love about sports. I'm not the biggest sports person. I follow it because I like the human stories. So when people are like, "Do you like football?" I go, "Yes." They go, "What team do you like?" Well, I go, "I like people." So I like the stories. Like I liked Andy Reid's story
Right.
of his career as a coach, which is why I kind of like the Chiefs,
Yeah.
but it's because of his
Yeah.
backstory. You know what I mean?
Well, it's like I get Olympic fever,
Okay, yeah.
right?
I could see that.
I love the Olympics. I love the pageantry of it. Personally, like the uh, it has a better name of this, but like the parade of athletes in the
Yeah,
opening ceremony when they all walk through and they're all wearing their little outfits by
yeah.
country and if you watch it enough, you know that the countries are arranged in French. So it's not United States, it's the États-Unis comes out. Like it's really
Oh, I
interesting. It
didn't know
comes
that.
out in
Yeah.
different languages, alphabetically, and so depending on how the country is spelled in any
I
different
didn't know
country,
that.
it's just a
Yeah.
weird, fun little thing. I love that. I love all the packages of like
The
the
backstories. I
backstories,
love the
right?
backstories.
This Chinese girl was born and put into the gymnast program, right? So,
That's for skateboarding now.
right? But just
But yeah,
but I love that kind of stuff. I love the stories and the thing where you can see that a person is at a crossroads and something's on the line for them
yeah.
and that they've worked for something for so long and can they do this? Can they not do that? I love it.
That's why Drive to Survive
Yeah.
is become as big because you get to see the humanity behind it, and
Mhm.
which makes it even more dramatic when real life imitates the art. Like Christian Horner has that infidelity issue or that
Mhm.
situation that's going on, but it just casts a whole new spotlight that draws people in that have give 2 shits about driving race
Well,
cars.
which is why I'll bring it back to Vanderpump Rules,
Fair enough.
because
Yeah, yeah.
last year, like, show going along, going along, going along,
Yeah.
and then it comes out that one of the guys, Tom Sandoval, who was just on the New York Times Magazine, he, was having an affair with a different cast member in secret behind the back of his girlfriend of 9 years, who's also on the show, and so it was like this they had finished shooting for the season, but
Yeah.
they picked cameras back up to deal with the fallout of it, but there were still, like, 6 or 7 episodes of the regular series already in the can before they got to the revelation, and so you got to be like, "Ooh, I wonder if that's did someone know that? Had it been going on then?" Like, and it just gave another level of trying to figure out, like, when the affair had started and did they know and who knew at what point, and it was
Yeah.
wonderful. It was an amazing, TV watching experience.
When you talk about that, makes me think about The Challenge. Remember
Yep.
Real World
Yes.
Road Rules, and then how it evolved and what TJ Lavin has become the Alex Trebek of that era
Mhm,
for of
mhm.
those challenge
Sure.
shows, but you have these career people that that's all they do
Yes.
is these challenges, but there's this one I wanna say it's a character, but it's not because 'cause they're, these it's
Mhm.
unscripted, partially teed up,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
But one of the persons was this guy CT, and he was in love with this girl DM. They
Mhm.
met in the show,
Mhm.
they had a thing, they weren't together, but then she got cancer and passed away. But this whole storyline played out within what was happening and was people were riveted by it, and it still sticks with them.
Yeah. And CT is now on The Traitors, which is on Peacock, which is a different reality
Oh,
show
I didn't know that.
where a bunch of reality people are living in what is supposedly Alan Cumming's castle in Scotland.
Like surreal lifestyle?
It's surreal lifestyle with an overlay of, like, you ever play, like, the game Werewolves or Assassin where, like, a couple people are picked out to
Oh, yes.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
it's like that,
Okay.
and so a couple people are traitors, and they have to kill the other people before they're found out.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like surreal life meets
Dinner Mystery Theater?
yeah, kind of,
Okay.
kind of. It's
That's
pretty good,
funny.
yeah.
So, where does this all like, who wins the streaming wars then?
I mean, if in term if we wanna talk in that term, right, the streaming wars, I think it's clear that Netflix won the streaming wars, right? Like, if you're talking about filmed content and a val and an amount, of value placed on a library, on the number of subscribers you have, on the number of subscribers you can sell ads to, like, they won, right? Like, they won before, like, the first shot was fired because they were already so far ahead before every other company was like, "Oh, we gotta do just like they do," which
They're not tech companies.
they're not tech companies, so
Yeah.
they couldn't do the same thing. I would say that the streaming wars are over and Netflix won, but, like, what's the next war?
Yeah.
That's what's interesting to me, right? Like, so is that in short form, TikToky, whatever? Or has, again, before we even declare that war, has YouTube already won that war because that's where so many people just go and watch whatever they want, whenever they want,
No, that's valid. Yeah.
right? What is the
And then
next
what is the next war? Because AI was at one of the big components of the strike, right?
yeah,
But there's so much ambiguity because people aren't just informed enough about it. They're not the ones building a lot of these systems
right.
and the data ingestion. They just don't have a full grasp of it. So how can you write any type of regulation or any type of rules if you don't fully understand what's even happening and how it's happening?
Yeah,
So when you talk about this, yeah, I feel like, yeah, what is the next one? That's a more apropos question, right?
right? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
that's a different podcast.
Yeah, it is. So
And if you know what it is, please call in. You can reach out to me on
call
my
in.
LinkedIn page. Tell me where it is.
Yeah, because that'll set you apart.
I'm hashtag open to work.